it's your girl Marcy, the official OT. So I wanted to make a video today, sharing some personal experiences or things that I have observed after now being a new graduate and stepping into the profession of being an occupational therapist. So today it's going to be what they do not share or teach in OT school. Again, I'm referring to some notes for today. So I feel like I have learned so much from being a new grad, especially, in this pandemic of COVID-19. I feel like nobody predicted COVID-19 for my specific class would happen, but at the same time, I feel like it has affected us all as a whole, but being a new grad, I feel like it's very hard. It's already competitive. It's already competitive with other grads in general when you finish school and after you pass your boards and applying for jobs, but I feel like now it's even 10 times more harder applying for jobs during COVID-19. So my number one, I'm going to talk about the first thing that I think that personally wasn't shared or they taught in grad school. They teach the types of questions, or they give you references and things to refer to when you study for your board exam, but I feel like they don't really teach you how to effectively study. And if you guys didn't see my last video was me giving tips on how I passed my board exam. But I feel like it depends on the type of person you are and, what type of study you are. It just comes from personal experience. Like, I know other people that have used references and things that I haven't used. So I feel like, it just depends on you, how actively you study. Pretty much, if you use the way that you studied through grad school, if you feel like that worked for you, I feel like it can work for you to pass the board exam. So I feel like it's a learning process. It's a curve. It's something that you would definitely have to figure out on your own. You would definitely learn from your fieldwork 1 and 2 experiences. But I feel like they don't really go into depth about how to study for it. It's just, a little start to how to get your resources, where to start looking up terms and questions, but they don't really tell you explicitly like what to actually look for. Another thing that I experienced, that's number 2 on this list, is job searching. Now, I thought initially, way before the pandemic started, that they make it seem like, you'll 100% get a job when you become a new grad. I actually have, other opinions about that. I feel like there's so many people competing for jobs that, depending on the state you live in, it could be very saturated. Like the state that I live in, there are so many occupational therapy grads that I've applied for over 100 jobs, and I've been on a few interviews, but it's either they see that you're a new grad, which I'm going to touch on, and you don't have the experience, they don't want to take a chance on you, or they may just be interested in another person, depending on their personality. Speaking of job searches, interviews are very different due to the pandemic. Most of the interviews are either Zoom or in person, and now if you go on interviews in person, most likely, they'll require a COVID test when you go there, or they'll do a screening. I remember a couple weeks ago, I went on an interview, and during COVID, you don't shake hands, and obviously my natural reflex was to shake a hand, and then I realized it's COVID, we don't shake hands. So it was so awkward. I was so embarrassed, but you quickly adapt. Zoom interviews are very interesting. They give you time, you dress up, you don't even have to dress your bottom, you can just dress up your top, answer questions, and you're good to go. So for me, the search engines that I used in relation to job searches, number one was Indeed. Jobs Hired, ZipRecruiter was okay, but Indeed, Jobs Hired, or it's called Jobs Simply Hired, those are the two top engines. Also, if you have groups, I know I have a ton of Facebook groups that I'm in with colleagues that I've graduated with. Also LinkedIn, you can use those resources as well, to keep up with all the jobs and things like that. So they definitely don't really tell you about job searches. I finished my boards in November. The end of November, I found out I passed in December. I got licensed in December and January because I'm licensed in 2 states, and I felt like it was still hard for me to find a job. It is now March, and I just have gotten, potentially 2 opportunities. So I've heard it takes months. And half the time when you do get jobs, a lot of them aren't full-time positions with benefits. A lot of them are per diem, PRN, or part-time. So I feel like even the full-time positions are way harder to grasp at the moment because of COVID. And then on top of that, you don't have experience. Like, this is something that I had to learn on my own. So I'm just sharing that with you guys. I feel like another thing that they don't really talk about, they kind of go over it like the concept of it, but they did let us know that, there are fees for this NBCOT, there are licensure fees, but they don't tell you the other fees. So when you sign up for your exam, I believe it's like $515, then it's like $35. You get one free test score to send out to any of the states once you pass, but I believe it's like $35 to send per score. So imagine if you want to do like 3 different states, times that by 3. There's also application fees. They will tell you there's application fees. But with the applications, they don't tell you that sometimes it's online. Sometimes you have to mail it in. Then on top of that, you have fees for background checks, fees for fingerprints. You have to send your transcript. Transcripts are not free through the school. I think for our school, it's $12.50 per each transcript. So if you total that, that's a lot of money coming out your pocket. And sometimes a lot of us aren't fortunate enough to have jobs or to have support because those fees add up. So you think you're done paying after you pass, but you're saving, you're spending so much more money. Like, even with the job, you do still get a job. Say you get a job, you get placed. Still have to pay money for scrubs if your company doesn't pay for that. You still have to pay money for equipment, sometimes for home care. I know I have my equipment for my clinicals and they'll offer, but some companies, basically they're like, you're on your own, or they'll reimburse you after the fact. So fees are something that you kind of want to take account for. I feel like that's really important. Let's talk about resumes. That's another step or tip. In school, we did go over resumes, but I feel like as you complete your fieldwork 2, I would just make sure you have everything, listed down that you completed in fieldwork 2. So as far as how many evals you did, some diagnosis that you've seen, some of the programs that you work with, like Optima, or there's another one, I think it's Concerta. I think it starts with a C. No, Combasa. I never used that one. Point click care. When you want to put that down on your resume, you basically want to have things that stick out from, the other people that you're competing with. The way you format your resume is very important. Don't make the font too small and don't make it too big. Do not exceed 2 pages. Try to not exceed 1 page, but I know for us as new grads, we have so many things that we write down. Also, do cover letters. I noticed when I started applying for jobs and I didn't submit a cover letter, I felt like I didn't get a lot of responses back. But once I started putting a cover letter for that specific job and you explain why you're qualified for that job, I feel like you have a better chance of probably getting an interview. So another tip that I want to share, or an experience that I want to share, is as a new grad and having no experience, I feel like the job searches are very limited. Hospitals are very competitive to get into. I've applied to so many hospital positions and I've gotten denied. Or on the other hand, I have some applications that are in consideration and they've been in consideration for like 2.5 months, and you're literally on the waiting backlist. And most of those positions are either part-time or per diem. For some reason, I noticed that a lot of companies want students or want, graduates to have at least some type of experience. I don't have acute experience, but, at the end of the day, we're well-rounded therapists, and I feel like there's going to be some type of training. There's things that we learned in school we can, bring to the table. I know for me, I did SNF and a long-term care facility. They're all in one, and I did a school setting. Going back to what they don't tell you as far as different settings real quick. In my state, I didn't know this, but again, you needed a school certification. So you had to apply for a whole nother certification after you already got your license. You have to pay money for that. You have to go through a whole nother background check. You got to apply for a teaching certificate. You got to go through the Board of Education. It's just so much work. So I felt like those are things I would have wanted to know about before I graduated, before I finished, because these are things that I just, when a recruiter or somebody calls me, it's like, hey, like, I saw your application, and they're like, do you have a school certification? I felt stupid. I'm like, what's that? They're like, oh, you need this to work in the school system. So that was something new. So I would say when you guys are out in your fieldwork 2 experiences and you're with your fieldwork instructor, I would just ask them questions about the requirements for those specific positions that you're interested in or the setting that you're in. So that was for the school setting. When you do your interview as a new grad with no experience, I would just focus on the strengths and things that you have done during your field work. Like, I know for me, I was fortunate enough to, have some type of experience with the SNF. So when I did go on interviews, they'll be like, oh, so you work with Rehab Optima, or you did this and you did this evaluation, like they're familiar. So they don't really need to, reteach everything to you again because you have a good grasp of it. Also, I would say keep all your tools that you have. I didn't mention this before. Gait belt, blood pressure puff, the oximeter, what else? Goniometer, just like your bag, like your Kanice bag, that'll come in handy as well, so you don't have to keep on like buying new things. I would keep your lab coats, keep your scrubs if you can still fit them. That'll come in handy later. Keep your sneakers, if they're comfortable, if they're fairly new, they're not worn out. Or if they are worn out, you can use that as your work shoes. Another experience that I had recently when I had a job interview is the difference between contract work and non-contract work. Contract work is, you're with that company either for some time, like that you can do travel OT where you travel to different states, or you can be contract OT to a school, but you're not actually working for the school. You're working through a company. You can do it that way. So you might want to look more into that as well, because when you apply for jobs, you might want to know the difference. For home health, you may want to ask questions if, if there's mileage reimbursement. I've been on interviews where they say they reimburse for mileage. You can get that back at the end of the year, and some don't. So that's really ask about PPE. I've asked individuals if they provide PPE, and some of them say no. So that's something that you might want to look into before you accept the position. So life as a new grad occupational therapist, I would say it feels good, but it's also very stressful at the same time. I don't know if it's because of COVID, but it is definitely not the way that I expected it to be. Like, I expected it to be like really easy sailing when I finished school, passing my boards. Like, it would be so easy to get a job. I mean, now in the market, I see more of home health and hospital positions. But it's just very hard. Um, I've heard stories of people saying they waited like a whole year to get a job, or, classmates of mine have like 3 different PRN positions, depending on your financial situation. I know we want to pay off all those student loans. I know eventually I would want a full-time position, but if I can get my foot in the door, that's something that I would do. And I would also like ask colleagues, like, hey, is this place hiring, or what do you think of this place? Or even ask them for tips, like, how was this experience at this place? Or how are you adapting to the place you're working out at? You're working at in the setting. So I would just, ask questions. So I feel like those few things I feel like what they don't teach you in occupational therapy school. Like, those are like real life tips that I had to learn on my own. No one helped me. I would Google things, try to look up YouTube videos, and just go through that stuff. But I really want to share with you my experience, because I thought it would have been, a-okay, but it's been a roller coaster. Like, I'm grateful for the opportunity of getting the practice of interviews, but I feel like maybe the market will get better once the COVID rates have gone down, and, we can have a better outlook. But I just want to share with you guys, like, my personal experience, and yeah. So I'm still trying to figure out what my next video will be for you guys. I know I still have to do financial aid for grad school. We already know how to do the FAFSA, but as far as the Grad Plus loan, so I think that'll be my next video. So if you guys can give this video a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share with your friends, I would thank you guys so much, and thank you for tuning in. Bye, guys.